Every space tells a story. Mine has always been about breaking down the barriers between creation and imagination. I've been imagining this setup for years, where my physical space completely mirrors my creative workflow. The perfect workspace isn't just about having the best gear. It's about creating a space where the technology disappears completely and all that's left is you and your imagination. So I had this idea, screens built into the desk that perfectly work with the way I work when I'm making music. I guess the goal is to feel every aspect of the music making process. I want my tools to feel like a musical instrument so that I can express my creativity more freely. The plan was to integrate these screens with the FaderPort 16 by using custom code to remap the way that FaderPort 16 actually worked. A bottom screen that was always dedicated to my faders and my mix console, and a top screen that was dedicated to my project window and plugins. And I know this question's coming, so why not a touchscreen? Because why on earth would I want to be touching a flat 2D screen when I can be using a screen that's connected to real motorized faders? This is my dream setup. This was a huge process and probably the biggest project that I've ever taken on. It was absolutely massive. It also came with a bunch of challenges, which I fully covered in another video. But with that comes the satisfaction that I felt when it was finally finished. After weeks of planning, designing, building, and then writing the code to integrate the monitor with the FaderPort, it's finally finished, and now I can finally show you guys exactly how I use this setup and why I've set it up the way it is. I use my monitors in a very specific way, which kind of helps me to replicate the feel of an analog studio as much as I can, while still getting all of the benefits of in-the-box mixing with complete digital. This is a setup that I started developing probably about 5 years ago. I got a second screen in my old studio, so I decided to put one of the monitors on the bottom, laying back on an angle so that it could kind of replicate a mixing console. Now, my current setup, I've taken that to a whole new level with actual physical faders. The end result is awesome. It's just really fun to use, which is probably one of the biggest goals for the whole project. I really wanted to kind of bring the fun and enjoyment of analog gear into my digital studio. So first up, a quick breakdown of my setup. This is a custom-made desk that I've designed and built myself. It's specifically made to actually fit for these exact monitors. And I want to give a huge shout out to Philips for actually helping me with this whole setup. They worked with me side by side to pick out the exact monitors for this setup. So I've created this frame around the FaderPort that not only looks nice, but it also holds the bottom monitor in place. This bottom screen is slotted into the back of this frame, and it leans back on a stand that's behind this part of the desk. And if I want to change the angle, I can actually just pull this frame forward to modify the angle of the screen. These monitors are specifically chosen so that the pixel density is very, very closely matched between the two of them. Having the pixel density matched between these two monitors means that everything just works smoothly. As I found out with my last setup, if your pixel density between the monitors doesn't match, you need to start doing custom resolution scaling. A lot of these things that I had to do to get my old monitors to work kind of had other effects. Certain plugins wouldn't work because of the custom resolution scaling. Some plugins would have a really tiny UI because they weren't set up to work with resolution scaling. Now with this setup, everything just works perfectly. If I move the mouse between the screens, you can see that it just smoothly connects and it just seamlessly works, which is what I love so much about this setup. I've got the top screen up here for my project window. That is kind of my overview of what's happening in the project, and mostly that just stays as it is. Bottom screen is my mix console and where I do all of my detailed work. I wanted the bottom screen to be angled like this to kind of replicate a little bit of the feeling of having an analog console where your faders and your whole mix console was in front of you. And I can control the mix console either using the CC121, move between all of my tracks forward and back, or I can use the fader port. And as you see, as I'm moving through the tracks, the selected track will update on the fader port. And then I can also use the scroll wheel here to scroll through all of the tracks. Obviously, I can control all the faders. I can do a bunch of different things using this and using the CC121, including controlling which plugin slot I'm working with. I can see that I've got Pro Q3 on slot 3. So if I hit that, I've opened that. This functionality is not part of the fader port by default. I actually had to program this in with some custom code, and that's a whole different video though. All of these faders in the mode that I have currently selected will automatically map to whatever plugin I've got open. I can close that again just by pressing that slot. My faders are automatically mapped. I can mess around with all of these, change whatever I need to change. I can open multiple plugins at the same time if I want. And these lit up buttons will let me know which slots are open. The slot that I'm controlling is always going to be the one that's in front and selected. And then I can also use the cycle button to switch between them if I want. So not only is this bottom screen my mix console, as you've just seen, but I also do all of my main work using this screen. So for example, if I double click on one of my MIDI parts here, you can see that it opens in my bottom screen. This is, as I was saying before, where I do all of my work. If I grab my sampler track, that will open up down here. I also have the bottom window set up for my media bay so that I can search through all of my audio and my own samples. I just hit F5 and my media bay opens up in the bottom window. So now I can look through all of the different sounds that I have. I can drag them straight from this bottom window into my project window. And yeah, that's basically how I work with that. Now, there's a couple of cool things about this. It streamlines my workflow massively. I don't really spend any time using the mouse to kind of navigate through windows or move windows around, and I never really rearrange any of my windows. I've set my windows up the way they are, and that's it. This kind of allows me to edit my audio, edit my MIDI, and mess around with the actual melodies and the songwriting, while also having an overview of the whole project at the same time. So once I've kind of got a bit of an idea down, then I bring the mix console back to the front and start doing the gain staging, adding plugins, and general mixing. So the bottom screen is a QHD display, and the top screen is an ultra-wide QHD display. So the top screen is curved, and it has the Ambiglow backlights, which you can see lighting up the wall behind the screen there. It also has HDR and just has an amazing crystal clear image quality with really nice colors. The bottom screen is an IPS screen. This is important for this kind of setup because IPS screens have better viewing angles. So the IPS screen on the bottom allows me to have that 45-degree angle where I can still see everything clearly. The other thing that this screen setup allows me to have is everything that I need in reach on this desk. Underneath the desk, I also have my keyboard tray. So anything I need to do, I can do it really quickly and easy with everything in reach without having to change or modify or even move anything in my setup. And the other cool thing about this setup is that it's also designed for ergonomics. Having the screen at eye level at the back means that I'm not having to look up or look down too much. Everything is just kind of in the perfect position. If I'm going to be spending a lot of time at the desk, I want to make sure that I'm looking after my health so that I don't get problems in the future or in the long run. Now, this is just a little thing and it's not really that important, but it's just kind of cool. If you can see this something that Cubase has. It's got this right panel and this left panel. You can see how the bottom screen kind of perfectly lines up with the main project window up the top. It's a small detail, but it's kind of cool, and I really like the way that it worked out like that. Now, the other great thing about this top monitor specifically is that it's amazing for gaming. So when I do need to take a break, I fire up my gaming PC, and this monitor is a beast. Not only does it have HDR, but it's also a 175 Hertz screen with a 0.03 millisecond response time. It also has AMD FreeSync Premium, and even the bottom monitor has the entry-level AMD FreeSync just for basic gaming. The really cool thing that I really love though is that the ambiglow lighting at the back can be set to sync with whatever's in the screen. So when using that with gaming, it is the ultimate immersion. So not only is it awesome for music production, but it's really cool for taking those breaks and just having some gaming sessions in between. So overall, this setup has massively increased my productivity. One of the biggest things though that this setup has allowed me to do is bring back the joy of analog hardware into my studio. Something that for me is so important. Touch and feeling and the enjoyment of making music and being connected to that process physically is a massive thing, because I kind of found that the more we start relying on digital, the more I was just using my mouse and keyboard for everything. This screen setup has allowed me to use my mouse and keyboard less and actually fully get immersed in real hardware, real faders, real knobs, and just using everything cleanly, easily, and I can just focus on actually making music. So I hope this video has been useful and given you some ideas for your own setup. If you guys want to check out either of these screens, I'm going to put the links down in the description. Next video, I'm going to try and do a deep dive into this fader port and really show you some of the cool features of the fader port and how I use it with these screens. So until next time, that's it for me.